markets reacted positively yesterday to the recent reforms by the Central Bank of Nigeria, with the Naira appreciating by 13.3% on the parallel market to close at 1,350 Naira to the dollar, compared to 1,530 Naira to the dollar on Wednesday. The strategy, this day learned, is to encourage people to approach the official FX markets to carry out their transactions, a move which could be working at all as the official rate appears now more attractive to do business with where it is at the moment. However, despite the latest CBN interventions aimed at market correction, the local currency again surpassed the parallel market price to close at 1,461.90 per dollar at the official Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange, NAFEX. This represented a marginal decline of 6 Naira 31 kobo compared to 1,455 Naira 59 kobo to a dollar recorded the previous day. This came as deposit money banks have initiated steps to comply with the directive of the Apex Bank for swift repatriation of export proceeds into export domiciliary accounts. Right, Dr. Bati, the focus still on the Naira and at least yesterday, good news from NAFEX that we've gained 13.3%. What's your take on this story?
Well, I mean, all these stories. Look, the thing is that when the CBN or government comes up with a policy reform, yes, market may react within 24 hours, but it's not the 24-hour reaction within the market that we use to establish the usefulness, the value, the validity, the relevance of the particular policies that have been introduced. The key question here is the sustainability. In the parallel market, are we supposed to be celebrating this morning that the Naira value has fallen down to 1,350 to the dollar? What does that mean in real terms still? What effect does it have on manufacturing? What effect does it have for, families, businesses that have to transact businesses and would depend on, the exchange value of the Naira? Not much difference, in my view. So to quote some small figures 24 hours later and be jubilating is specious. In the NAFEX window, what you still have is the NAFEX window holding at 1,461 Naira. This is nothing to jubilate about. I think we should be more concerned about what the long-term implication could be. And then there is some jubilation about banks now moving to ensure strict repatriation of export proceeds into domiciliary account. Look, the thing that we have seen about Nigeria is that Nigerians are very good at beating the system. They are very good at gaming the system. So, okay, the banks may have made some, moves in response to the body language of the CBN. Will they do it on a consistent basis? Is there a mechanism, an effective mechanism for monitoring this? And then there's the issue about IMTOs, right? Yeah. The $1 million minimum share capital. Okay, all of these things, the objective of the CBN is to increase liquidity of Forex and to see how that can be used to manage the foreign exchange crisis that Nigeria faces. Now, all these policies that are taken straight from textbooks, and then imposed, they may work in other parts of the world, but our experience here is that they don't always work in Nigeria. So I think it's too early for us to say, the reform is working within 24 hours. Let us see what happens next week. Let us see what happens 1 month after. And then we can begin to say, some progress is being made. Because as some analysts who understand the subject much better, being their, subject area, expert concern, I've pointed out, is that the Nigerian government is yet to address the root of the problem. We run a dollar-denominated economy. Even the same people who are saying they are making policies, they know this. Most government officials don't spend Naira. We should stop deceiving ourselves. the most convenient thing for them is to spend dollars, because they will have to carry lorry loads of naira to be able to transact business, even for their own political purposes. When FAC allocation goes out every month, what these state governments and local governments do is to just pay salaries. Once they pay salaries and all that, and they take running expenses, they hand over the money to Bureau de Change. They convert the money to dollars. Okay, what kind of system is that? Who is going to go after those people who are perpetually sabotaging the system? So all these textbook ideas about, export proceeds paid into this account, it will not work if we do not address the Nigerian factor. And my fear is that we will sit down here in another month or maybe in another week, what is being celebrated, that the market has responded positively. Give it 1 week. We will see that the same market has gone in another direction. And this is the problem. Policy flip-flop, uncertainty, failure to put our fingers on what the main issues are, and the will, the political will, the confidence, the courage to slaughter the dragon. That is the problem. As it is in the economy, so it is elsewhere. So I'm not impressed by stories about, market has responded positively. No, even in the US, when market responds positively, it can change within 24 hours. When there was expectation that the Federal Reserve was going to cut rates, of course, the stocks kept doing well. NASDAQ, S&P 500, Dow Jones average, industrial average. But the moment the Federal Reserve showed that, no, it was not going to cut rates yet, at least not until July next year, possibly. Of course, the stock market responded differently. And that is the way it is. So I don't see any reason for us to start jubilating. Certainly not.
Well, in terms of jubilation, Dr. Bati, I think it's just a grasp on any kind of positive news, because the headlines I've read in recent times, the free fall of the Naira. In fact, it's reported that since the beginning of this year, the Naira has lost up to 40% of its value. Now, when it comes to some of the policy reforms made and directions by the CBN in recent times, some have attributed this 13.3% gain to it. However, as Dr. Bate already highlighted, the question then is, how long would this last? And in responding to that question, it is a call for the CBN to not just target the lower rungs in terms of the cause of the problems or the challenges. Yes, following the directions to the banks to ensure that they offload excess dollar and not, keep holding on to it because they're speculating as to whether or not the Naira would depreciate and there will be more value for them. That helped 13.3%. We've seen some of the reactions following this. However, if the root cause of the problem isn't tackled, then we will not be going anywhere. Then beyond just a finance-driven solution to the challenge of the Naira or the prospects of strengthening the Naira, what analysts have said is that side by side, and I believe the CBN to have said this, this has been their position, is that side by side there must also be fiscal reform. There must also be a look at how we will begin to produce enough to be able to get more inflows in terms of dollars to the country. If we continue to just have a finance-driven solution to these challenges, we'll just have minimum respite and very temporary respite as well. But the long run, what we often accuse or say when it comes to issues, not just in the financial sector or the economy in Nigeria, is that they're usually knee-jerk reactions or responses to things, situations and conditions that are not favorable. However, it is a proper plan to see how we can, on a long term, strengthen the Naira. How do we become a nation that produces? How do we develop sectors like the manufacturing sector in order to not just keep on exporting raw materials, but export finished goods in exchange for this much, in exchange for dollars? How do we how do we develop other sectors like science and technology? We looked at tech figures around the world. We look at Nigeria as the next tech frontier on the African continent. What are we doing to invest in this sector? We look at the area of agriculture. So many things that must be discussed. So yes, these temporary measures, well, not temporary, but these immediate measures are very important. But even more important are the long-term solutions, both monetary and fiscal reforms. Move on to the next story. Despite clarification from sources with knowledge of the development, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has halted the decision to put the Central Bank of Nigeria in charge of proceeds from the sale of the country's crude oil by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. Atiku described the purported presidential directive as a violation of the legal status of the National Oil Company. According to Atiku, any attempt to undermine the operational independence of the NNPCL will be a hindrance to any chances of attracting investments and attaining global relevance in the petroleum industry. But sources in the know of the goings-on had earlier explained that contrary to reports, the NNPCL actually offered to move some of its accounts to the Apex Bank to support the liquidity management objective of the CBN. It explained that the move was necessitated by the decision of the management of NNPCL to assist the Apex Bank with the issues of boosting liquidity in Naira and dollar components. Dr. Batim, take on the story.
Well, I mean, when we sit on this desk every time, we make the argument that, yes, quality opposition is very important. And that we have seen, an emergent robustness on the part of opposition parties in Nigeria, notably the People's Democratic Party and the Labour Party. But I think the affected political parties also need to be advised that criticism for criticism's sake, being censorious, just trying to get into the news is not advisable. What is this latest matter that we are looking at? Waziri Atiku Abubakar, presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, being quoted as having issued a release that was probably issued by one of his spokespersons, who probably does not even have a full grasp of the subject, saying that, the federal government directing that the CBN should now be the place where proceeds, crude oil receipts should be deposited for vetting and oversight is a violation, according to the statement, of Section 53 to 65 of the CBN Act of 2007. And the argument, two arguments that they raise, is that the NNPCL, a company in transition, as it were, within the purview of the Petroleum Industry Act, is now a limited liability company. And to that extent, it is independent. What is not clear in that regard is that to what extent is the NNPCL divorced from the Nigerian government? The majority shareholder in that NNPCL, even as a limited liability company, is the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, which, of course, is federal government of Nigeria, more or less, okay? So to say it's just like any other limited liability company, and you talk about this independence is wrong, because NNPCL is a cash cow for the Nigerian government. Number two, we have always complained in this country about the opaqueness of NNPC receipts. The Tinubu administration has made it very clear that what they are trying to address is that opaqueness, to see how clearing it can help to solve the problem of forex liquidity that the CBN is looking for everything about. After all, the other time, the same CBN had to go and enter into an arrangement with Afrexim Bank. And we were told that the arrangement was to, shore up forex liquidity for Nigeria so that there will be productivity and investment will be encouraged. What did the PDP say at that time? They didn't oppose it. And if they did, well, maybe they will put it back on the table. The third point that I think I saw in that their statement that requires a comment is that government establishments that have their own establishment laws should run their own accounts. In fact, that has been a major problem with the running of government finance in this country. Many of these government ministries, departments, agencies, and corporations, they run accounts that are not even known to the federal government of Nigeria. All this, well, don't let me mention specific names, but if I'm required to, provide evidence, I'm sure the people who are there, they know that there are documents there. You will find one government agency that will have like 10, 15 accounts. They will open all these accounts, they will be making process, and they will not be remitting due funds to the Nigerian government. When Okonjo-Iweala was Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, she tried to address this problem. It was on the basis of that the Jonathan administration came up with this treasury single account to be able to track the money. Under President Buhari, we also saw an attempt to track the money. This is what, with this NNPCL thing and the CBN, this is also what President Tinubu is trying to do, to track the money. So to the extent that the policy is about transparency and accountability, I think that, there's really nothing to complain about. However, if Waziri Atiku Abubakar and the PDP, if they feel that any particular section of the law has been violated, the sections of the Petroleum Industry Act that they are quoting is just general statement. It's a limited liability company that's supposed to be independent. They can go to court as concerned citizens, as stakeholders, to ask the court to test the law. How has this administrative directive, how has it violated the enabling law? These are the issues. So I don't think that we should make too much capital out of this, but I'm sure that most Nigerians will agree with the fact that where any effort is made to ensure transparency and accountability, and the Tinubu administration goes in that direction, it deserves the support of even the opposition to follow the money, track the money for the benefit of the country at a time when the entire country is in economic dire straits.
All right, so at the core of this statement by, both former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and the directive by the federal government is transparency and accountability by NNPCL. And I believe that a lot of people agree with this position because this has come under question a number of times, not just in immediate, but even in the past, as to how transparent the NNPCL is. Now, NNPC at the time, now the NNPCL. Now, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's argument, according to him, is that the NNPCL is the creation of the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021. And in his submission, he made some very good suggestions that since it is now a limited liability company, then what we should be looking at in terms of checking the running of the organization should be to strengthen the board and who gets appointed to the board of the NNPCL. And I think he makes a good recommendation in that regard, because when it comes to companies that are limited by liability, indeed the board has oversight. And his case about what this signals to investors is cause for concern. As has already been said, he's made his arguments, and perhaps they might want to test this further in the court of law. We'll move on to our next story very quickly. President Bola Tinubu has congratulated Aliko Dangote, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Dangote Group, on the award of the National Order of the Lion by President Macky Sall of Senegal. The award, which is the highest order in Senegal, will be bestowed on the foremost businessman on February the 2nd. That's today. President Tinubu applauds Dangote for his enterprise and ingenuity, creating jobs and opportunities for many in Nigeria and across West Africa. Well, congratulations, Alhaji Aliko Dangote.